Let me just create one class. And let me call it as test. Okay. Now, so I'll create an object. T is equals to new test. So last time we saw when I go and run, nothing is printed because I'm not calling any method or printing anything. So this we have seen, and by default, JVM adds the constructor. So what is a constructor? Constructor will have the same name as that of a class name. It will not have a return type. So if you have something like this, this becomes a method. Now, if you see this, okay, in the backend, it will just add this constructor. So if I go and run, this constructor is also being called. But since I don't have anything inside this, I'm not getting anything. If I print something, let me call it as default. Now, I'm not calling any method, all those things. So constructor is called the moment you create an object of the class, you see. So I'll write it here. Constructor is called when you create object of class. Now in this constructor, this is the default constructor. There is also something known as parameterized constructor. What is parameterized constructor? That means same like method. Okay. So if I have one more constructor like this, it will give me error because you cannot have the same whatever public test you cannot have. Okay. And if you change the name here test1, this will not be a constructor. Now it says that you have to go and add the return type. If I add the return type, now it becomes a method. But according to the definition of a constructor, constructor should have the same name that of a class name. But I cannot have. So instead, I can have a parameterized constructor. What do you mean by parameter? We have seen. So inside this, just mention something like string name. This becomes parameterized constructor. So what I'll do, I'll just say parameterized. Now, even now when you go and run, now if you see here, it's still running default because, so here, what's happening here, the moment you say test T, so there's a class called test. So when you go and create a class called test, so there's a class, so it'll just create one class. Now you say test T, so it will go create an object of T here, and when you say new test, it will go call the constructor here. So it will be like this, public test. Now if you look at the program here, yeah, test. So the moment you click on test C is equal to test, it will go to class and new test. So it will search without the parameters, it will call. Now if you want to call this, what you need to do is say test. I cannot again create T because T is already created one object. I'll say T1 is equals to new test. If I just say new test, okay, first I'll run this. Again, it will call the same thing, but it has created two objects. It will call default twice, see, default, but I doesn't want to call this, I want to call this. So it says string name. So pass some name, because let's say, I'll say example. Now when you say example, it will go and create an object, it will go and search test name, no, test name, yes, it will go inside this. Here I am saying system out.println parameterized. It will print parameterized. See, default and parameterized. If I comment this, if I go and run, it will print only parameterized now. Now let's say I have one more. Let me create multiple tests. Now I cannot have same string name, or I cannot have blank. What I'll do, I'll say int I. I can have public, various combination I can have. Let's say double D. See, these are all parameterized constructor. If you look at this, it satisfies whatever the class name it is there, and it's public. Okay. But inside this, whatever. So when you go and create an object, it will check what is it you're passing here as an argument. If you're passing a string, it will go and read string. If you're passing an integer, it will go and call the integer. If I say test t2 is equals to new test, let's say 20. Now which one it will call?
Example, yeah, the system integer, integer, constant.
It will draw example, then it will call integer. See, integer. Now instead of 20, I'll say 24.56. Now which one it will call?
24.
Double, because double is this one. So again, instead of 24.7, again if I say some characters, which one it will call?
Again double.
No, why double? It will call string. Whatever the value I'm passing here, what is this?
Okay.
This is string,
Yeah.
right? Here I have different
Yeah,
string.
it's alphabet. It's a string.
Yeah.
String.
Okay. This was about the constructor and default constructor. This also we'll use a lot. Okay, need to practice this. Then let's get on with today's this one. Okay. There's something known as static keyword. This is also very important topic called static keywords. So what is this static keyword? Now, static is always associated with class. Remember this. In general, when you mean static, static means no change. So static is always associated with class. And I mean that, so I'll say class test. Let's say I have method 1, I have method 2. Then obviously to execute this, I'll have public static void main. I have to go and create an object. Static t is equals to new test. Then I'll say t dot method 1. Again, for this one also I should say t dot method 2. Now, the whole process of creating an object, everything is necessary because whatever these methods are non-static. How do I know non-static? Is because in the method name I've not mentioned anything static. Okay. How to convert this into static? Simple, just need to say public, just add a keyword called static. Then obviously return type and method name. Now, public static void method 1. If you remove this, this becomes a non-static. If you add this, it becomes a static. That's all it is. Now, what is the benefit of using this static keyword? Whatever you create the object, everything, this is not needed for static. You can simply call method 1. No need to create an object, everything. Okay. If you just say method 1 will execute. Method 2 will execute. The whole process of creating object, this is not needed if it is static. So we'll see two example, one for non-static and one for static, and you'll know the difference. But second question comes, if no need for me to create an object everything, then I can easily use static everywhere. But if you use static everywhere, then there will be a performance issue. So that's the reason, based on our requirement, wherever you think it's necessary, go and create a static method everything. If you create in every class everything, it will affect the memory and the performance. Okay, so let's see with example. Let me example. I'll say non-static. Public void method 1. Just create two methods. Public void method 2. Just print system.out.println method 2 system.out.println method 1. So if I create, first I have to create a object of the class. Now, if I go and run now, nothing will happen because it will just call the default constructor. I have not defined. There's nothing inside constructor, not called anything you don't see. So in order to access, you just need to say e dot method 1, e dot method 2. If I go and run, it will go and call two methods, method 1, method 2. Okay, so let me call method 1. Calling method 1, method 2. Similarly, I'll define two variables. I'll say public int age is equals to 30. I'll say public string name is equals to, let's say, John. Then let me say public double height is equals to, let's say, 5.89. Now I define three variables, age, string, name. So if I need to go and access it, again same thing. I need to say e dot age. Okay, so let me print it. So I'll just print what is my e dot age. Now all these are non-static. This is, are able to follow?
Yes, yeah, yes, sir. Yeah.
So whenever you want to, all these are non-static variables. Okay, let me write it here. These are non-static. Okay, I'll talk about it later. These are non-static global variables. Okay, and these are non-static methods. So simple how to identify is you don't have any static keyword.
Any static keyword.
Now it will call method 1, calling method 2, whatever the age, name, everything, I've printed everything. So if you observe in all of this, for the method I'm using the object, for even for the variables I'm using the object everything, because these are non-static. Same thing, I'll copy entire thing. I'll convert this into static. So let me cross verify, it's working fine. Yes. So how to convert it into static? First, let's convert method. How to convert is just add static here.
Static. Yeah.
Just add after public, just add static. This is done. Now, when you have the static, you can still go and create an object and call it. You can still go and call using the object. It will work. But you could see a warning here. It says change access to static using static keyword. Now, you need not go and call using an object. What you could do is, okay, you can remove creation of this object. Method 1, method 2. Okay, so let me now see. I've not created any object, so I can directly call method 1. So if I go and calling method 1 and method 2, because I made it static. If I remove this static, it will give me error. It says, if you mouse over, it says change method 1 to static. If it is static, I can directly call. If it is not static, I have to again go and create an object and call it. So I'll change back to static. Oh, no error has gone. Similarly, if I want to call this, so for non-static, again, I have to go and create an object. Then I should say k.age. I print it, k.age, k.name. K.height. Let's say for these also, it doesn't want to create an object. Okay, so I want to call them directly. It doesn't want to create object and call. I have to call directly. What is age? name, right. Again, if you mouse over, it says go and change it to static.
Yeah.
Now again, if I go and make it as static, just add the keyword static. Sorry, not here. After public, you have to give the static keyword. So calling method 1, 30, John, everything came in. So here, nowhere I have created object. So the difference between the non-static and static is without creation of an object, if you want to call a method variable, then use the static keyword.